services we give, for work and its rewards, for Good morning. Good morning. Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day. We invite you to take your seats. And prepare for this morning's service. On behalf of the worship committee, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Columbia. I am Janice Cars. Our minister is Reverend Stephen Robinson. Stay connected with our community by keeping an eye on the following communications. Our reoccurring events are included in the calendar with your order of service, but special events are coming. So please make sure that you pay attention to the email newsletter every Thursday to keep you informed about these upcoming events. Make sure you have your email address. And be sure to listen to any special announcements, because we do have one today, at the end of today's service. And as we often share important news that you won't want to miss. We warmly welcome families with children and offer childcare during our service for children up to 4 years old. If you want to volunteer to be a childcare during our services, please speak with Bethany Storlazzi. She's not here today. We have a designated seating area for children ages 4 to 7, right back over that way, for their parents and caregivers. And you're welcome to grab any toys from the back to help entertain. Today, children up to 8 years of old will be able to transition to the CYRE classes after the story for all ages. Today's flowers have been provided by our flower committee. Please silence all devices as we center ourselves for today's service and listen to the prelude. What a special treat. Thank you. Please rise in body and spirit and join me in the congregational covenant in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, and serve others in community. Thus do we covenant with one another. Please be seated. Unitarian Universalism is a diverse and non-creedal religion. Our community is founded on deeds, not creeds. We are a covenantal religion, meaning we don't have to believe the same to treat each other the same, with respect, equity, compassion, and dignity. We place love at the center of our values, embracing and welcoming all people. We're delighted to welcome our guests and visitors today. Sylvia will be coming around with a microphone. Please wait for the microphone before speaking. Share your name and where you're from when it's your turn. And if you have guests, please feel free to introduce them as well.
Okay. She's been introduced before, but I figured the more I introduce her, maybe she'll come all the time. This is my daughter, Grace. She lives in Lexington with us.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Courtney, and this is my first time, and I'm coming for Mother's Day. And this is my mom.
This is my papa, and that's my Mamie, my Grammy, and that's my Gramps, and over there is my Mamie. I'm so lucky to have my Grammy and Mamie and Papa over.
All right, welcome Grace, Courtney, Papa, Nanny, Gramps, Nene, Granny. Thank you. If you'd like to learn more about UUCC, visitor cards are available in the pocket in the back of each chair. Please fill one out and place it in the collection plate so that we can email you about our events. Our board members and committee chairs welcome your questions and comments. And board members can be identified by their green name tags. Thank you all for being here. Today's chalice lighter is Dave Stevens, who joined us in 2024. He participates in our choir and our Exploring Spirituality group and can often be found creating art during our services. Spirit of light and life, come unto us. Okay, we have hymn number 357, Bright Morning Stars.
Invite the children to join me down front for the story for all ages. Good morning. Almost got everybody here. All right. Good morning. I'll try that again. Oh, we can do better than that. Oh, that was pretty good. One more time. Awesome. That is great. Is anything special about today that you know of? Mother's Day. Wow. Did anybody know it was Mother's Day? Yeah, you knew that already? Anybody not know that it was Mother's Day? All right, that's good. Any hands out there raised? All right. I want to make sure everybody knows. Well, today I want to introduce you to someone really special. Here's a picture of her. She was born a little over 200 years ago. I believe 1819 was the year that she was born, and she lived a long life, almost 100 years old. So I have a young picture of her, and then a picture a little bit later in life. Does anybody know who that is? That would be awesome, I feel like. I never know with our Unitarian Universalist kids that just shout something out. All right, this is Julia Ward Howe. Have you heard that name before? No? Good. Well, we get to learn a little bit about Julia Ward Howe. One of the cool things about Julia Ward Howe is she was a Unitarian. Do you know any Unitarians? Yeah? You know some? Yeah? That's all of us. That's right. So she was one of us. Very good. Awesome. She was a Unitarian, and she lived a pretty long life. Maybe a couple of things she's most famous for. One is she wrote a poem that became a song, and it's called The Battle Hymn of the Republic. You know that song? Yeah? You've heard that before? All right. Another thing that she's really well known for, especially today, is it was her idea to create Mother's Day. Hey, Julia Ward Howe, a Unitarian. You know the Unitarians have all the best ideas, right? We knew that already, didn't we? So Julia Ward Howe created the first Mother's Day in about 1870. And the reason she created it was a little different than how we think about it today. She created it, and it was called a Mother's Day for Peace. A Mother's Day for Peace. And so a lot of people think about the apostrophe and where it goes. Like we have Mother's Day today as if it's a mother. Her Mother's Day was all the mothers coming together for peace. And what she meant by that is she wanted to have a day to recognize that we don't want to have war anymore. We don't want to have violence. We don't want to fight. We want to have peace. And so she was an abolitionist, so she wanted to bring an end to slavery in the U.S. And worked really hard with that all of her life throughout the Civil War. And then after the Civil War, she said, we really don't want to have war anymore. And so she had this special day where all the mothers came together and said, we want to have a proclamation that we want fighting to stop, we want war to stop, we want violence to stop, and we want to have peace. So we're very thankful. Of course, we celebrate Mother's Day in lots of different ways, but one of the ways that maybe we can celebrate today is celebrating Julia Ward Howe and thinking about how we can work for peace in our lives. You know, you can do that, right? Anybody have a fight today already? Yep. Anybody fight to get out of bed? Yeah, that's hard to do on these rainy days, right? Of course. And we tell ourselves all the time, yes, we want to have a peaceful day. Well, today we can have a wonderful, peaceful day and celebrate peace with Julia Ward Howe. So happy Mother's Day. Thank you for coming down, and I know that we have Milo waiting back there with some other staff and volunteers for a program for you today. So ages 0 to 8 can follow the staff out this morning. Thank you for being here. Wait till the fire truck finishes its route out there. You can hear that. Big thanks to Janice for doing our service leadership today and getting us off to such a great start here on this beautiful Sunday. And Anna is traveling. Our music director is traveling and out of town, and so it's been such a delight for Laura and Isabel to bless us with beautiful music this morning. And I know we all enjoyed that and so appreciate you stepping in. So wonderful, so wonderful. Thank you. Today, our opening words come from Prisma or Prisma Minicum. Prisma Minicum is a trauma therapist that has written a great deal about recovering from trauma, and we're going to focus a little bit today on one of his books. I'm going to share a quote from one of those texts. He writes, "In today's America, we tend to think of healing as something binary. Either we're broken or we're healed from that brokenness. But that's not how healing operates, and it's almost never how human growth works. More often, healing and growth takes place on a continuum, with innumerable points between utter brokenness and total health. Years as a healer and a trauma therapist have taught me that trauma isn't a destiny. The body, not the thinking brain, is where we experience most of our pain, pleasure, and joy, and where we process most of what happens to us. It's also where we do the most of our healing, including our emotional and psychological healing, and it's where we experience resilience and a sense of flow. And so all of this suggests that one of the best things each of us can do, not only for ourselves, but also for our children and grandchildren, is to metabolize our pain and heal our trauma. When we heal and make room for growth in our nervous systems, we have a better chance of spreading our emotional health to our descendants via our healthy DNA expression. And of course, in contrast, when we don't address that pain and trauma, we may pass it on to future generations, along with our fear, our constriction, and what he calls our dirty pain, pain that hasn't been dealt with, pain that hasn't been healed. This time we move to a point in our service where we light candles for those things that we are celebrating as a community together, but also the heavy burdens that we are sharing as a community. We have candles in our foyer that you can use to light, and we invite you at this time, if you have a candle that you would like to share, to please come, briefly share your joy and concern, and place your candle here.
Good morning. In keeping with the words that we just heard, it was placed on my heart to speak about the children. I've had occasion to be in the company of small children in the last few weeks, and I see how they come into schools and what they bring with them from home, the trauma, the fears, and all that good stuff. And I guess they look at me like a great grandma. I don't have all the eyelashes and the puffy hair or anything. So they look at me like a great grandma, and they come for hugs and they come for comfort, and they share their little hearts with me. And I'd like for you all to keep in mind when you see a child or you have children in your lives to sit down and talk to them at eye level. Hug them and just share your love with them and listen to them. And it'll help them to grow into more healthy, happier people, because we're all just people. We start out small, but our spirits are fully intact, and it needs to be loved and nurtured along in a loving and kind way. So just keep the children in mind all the rest of the life, all of our lives. Oh,
Hello, friends. I have a joy. I'm Linda Brennison. I have a joy and I have a concern. I'd like to share my concern first. It seems like we're on a theme today, Sylvia, with love. You know, love is at the center of our values here at UUCC. Also, our first principle speaks to the worth and dignity of all human beings. This is something we profess to believe in, and therefore, it's part of our faith. And I've been told that faith is an action word. So what does that mean? That means that we should demonstrate love to each other, whether you're on a committee, or whether you're on the board of trustees, whether you're on the choir, whether you work in CYRE. I feel that we need to treat each person with love and respect in order to adhere to our values that we profess to honor and believe in. Okay, that being said, my joy is I want to talk for a moment about this beautiful banner everybody's going to look at you, Pat, that's right in the back. And if you're sitting over here to the side, if you want to stand up, that's fine if you can't see it. But if you can't see it real well right now, perhaps you'll take a look at it later. This banner was made by a member of ours, an artist, a fabric artist actually, who has won many awards for her fabric art. Her name is Janet Swigler. She's also a wonderful musician. But one year, back in 2011, Janet was on the pledge committee. And they were trying to devise something where we could measure pledges and that would be eye-catching. And so they kind of started out with this idea to use crepe paper. But Janice, at her house, she had a lot of material, being this great fabric artist that she is. And so she says it just sort of came together. The pieces were the right size for the flame. And so she created this beautiful work of art, actually. And the second wonderful thing about it is it can be rolled all the way up to the top, and then it can be let down in increments. So right now we have it at 77%, which is the amount of the pledges that we have received. And Bill has been so kind, Bill Dolly, our sexton, to put that green tape on the wall. That is where we need it to be. So, you know, Janet and I, we love you, UCC, and we urge you to make your pledge if you have not. And I would like to say to new people, I discovered that a lot of new people don't understand what they're doing when they're pledging. A pledge is a promise. That is all a pledge is. And we have a card, and we write on the card, I think that during this year, our year begins July 1st, that I can pledge to give to this congregation X number of dollars. You don't have to give us that money right away. You have a whole year. You can give it monthly. You can give it all at once. You can give it weekly. We don't care. But we do like to keep our lights on. We do like to pay our wonderful minister, Stephen Robinson. So I just ask that when you look at this beautiful work of art and think of our 75th anniversary and all the people that have worked so hard to keep this place alive and how much we need it. It's the only Unitarian Universalist congregation in Columbia. If it goes, I don't know where I'm going to go personally. So please keep that in mind, and please turn your pledge card in. If you have not, you can contact our administrator, or, you can see me or John Logue or Jim Kimbler, and we will get you a card. Thank you so much.
My name is Pat Moore, and I have a very brief candle. I am one grateful mother, probably in every sense of the word. But here, this candle is to a husband that put up with me for 47 years and gave me 2 wonderful children who still speak to me, and 5 grandchildren. I'm flooded with gratitude today.
Susan Robinson. Have to second that. I am a fortunate mother too. But I am just wanting to express my gratitude to all of you for the months I've spent here. I'm heading back to Portland, Oregon, on the West Coast, another country practically, but I will miss all of you, but back in the fall again. But it is wonderful that you put up with this weird inability to really commit to anything because I'm leaving, but doing what I can while I'm here and taking me in. I will be watching the live stream. I was almost an Oregonian again before the pandemic, but then you started live streaming and I was able to keep meeting with the Story Circle and other Zooms and Social Action a little bit. And so that has made a lot of difference to me, settling back down each time I come. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. If we promise to have a mild summer, will you and our other folks who escape? I can't make that promise, though, unfortunately. Last candle that we light represents those silent joys and concerns we're holding this morning. I invite you to take a few deep breaths and remember all that's been shared this morning. Thank you. Our Share the Plate recipient for the month of May is Planned Parenthood. You can, of course, make donations with Sharing the Plate today, or always go online and our other ways that you can contribute to their Share the Plate fund. We will have a representative back at the end of the month to share about the good work of Planned Parenthood. I invite our ushers at this time to come and receive our morning offering. We receive our offering today, symbol of our commitment, symbol of our commitment to our good work. Again, thanks, Laura. Again, thanks, and Isabel, for the beautiful music. Today. And I thought it would be a good idea to have a mother-daughter combination for our music today, and she was absolutely right. I start with a poem by Billy Collins, who was poet laureate during the Clinton administration. One of my favorite poets to read, but also one of my least favorite poets to read, because he always hits at my heart in a certain way. Maybe I'm not always expecting it, but it's skillful way he does it. And he does it with this one as well, with a poem that he wrote for Mother's Day. He writes, "Here are thousands of meals, she said, and here is clothing, and a good education, and here is your lanyard, I replied. Here is a breathing body, and a beating heart, strong legs, bones and teeth, and two clear eyes to read the world, she whispered. And here, I said, is this lanyard I made for you at summer camp. I don't believe I ever made a lanyard for my mom, but I definitely can relate to that feeling of inadequacy. And how can you possibly express some form of celebration and gratitude for someone who has played a role in your life in that way? And looking back now from adulthood and seeing some of the gifts that children give to mothers for Mother's Day, I think about how cherished the lanyard is, even though it may not look exactly like you would think a Mother's Day gift would be. And I know that as we get older, we're supposed to get more powerful and wonderful with our Mother's Day gifts, but maybe those lanyards are the most cherished things of all. I also recognize the feeling of inadequacy in trying to preach a sermon on a day like Mother's Day. It's interesting when you ask Unitarian Universalist ministers what's the toughest day to prepare a sermon. Hands down, Mother's Day is that day. So, I will say, I think I've shared this before, and it's worth sharing again, that my seminary professor, John Claypool, said that sermons are co-created between the minister and the congregation, so if it's bad, it's partly your fault. I told Michelle on the way here, I think I've shared that before, but it's worth sharing again just to remind you. I think what makes it complicated, and I know what makes it complicated for me, is just trying to hold all the emotions of this day. Of course, Mother's Day holds a lot of celebration. Historically, as we talked about with the children, it's rooted in a fight for peace, and a fight for freedom, and an end to violence. There's a lot of celebration, a lot of days giving cards and gifts and flowers that recognize and celebrate moms. We have moms expressing gratitude. Also recognize that the day can be filled with grief and feelings around not only the loss of mothers, but mothers who have other losses in their lives, women who have losses in their lives, men who have losses in their lives, and it becomes a complicated day with complicated relationships. I grew up in a congregation that would always give flowers to the mother with the most children there, with the oldest children or the oldest mother there, or the youngest mother there, to the children who had gone the longest without speaking to their mom. They got flowers as well, something like that. I don't remember all the things that we would do, but that probably wasn't one of them. But that would be a UU thing to do, right? To try to capture all the feelings of motherhood. And so I typically try to find a way to bring this into the present in this space and think about how it connects to our day. And in unable to do that this year, I decided to look back over previous sermons and hope that you would forget them. and share one of those, especially if it went over okay. But honestly, looking back and remembering back on this Mother's Day and preparing for this day, I did think back to a sermon in 2021 because of a book that I was reading at the time this spring. During our COVID and our online services, we had a service where we focused on 7 mothers during our COVID experience. And we looked at pictures and we heard stories and shared stories of those mothers. We talked about Gwen Carr, who was the mother of Eric Garner, who was killed in New York. And we listened to Gwen, in her own words, say that the loss of her son was like an echo from the grave. When she first heard about George Floyd's death, she said those killings had a lot of similarities, and she felt that deep in her soul, deep in her uterus was the word that she used. We focused on Allison Jean, the mother of Botham Jean, who was shot in his own apartment by a police officer. And she said, "You may not understand the pain that a mother endures when she loses a child, particularly a child who was unarmed and innocent, yet murdered. For me, it felt like I went into labor all over again. And there's an emptiness in your stomach where you secured that child for 9 months. And I don't know that that void will ever be replaced or go away." Sabrina Fulton, who is the mother of Trayvon Martin, said the transformation was by no means straightforward. "I had a happy life, I had a joyful life for most of my life, and when this tragedy happened, I found myself in a dark, dark space that I wasn't familiar with and I didn't know how to handle it. And people kept telling me how strong I was, and I didn't feel strong at all." We talked about Tamika Palmer, who is the mother of Breonna Taylor, who just simply described the experience as torture, something that makes no sense. Wanda Cooper Jones, who is the mother of Ahmaud Arbery, she said, "What happened in February last year changed my life. When I lost Ahmaud, I lost a part of myself." Katie Wright, the mother of Dante Wright, who called his mother and said, "Mom, I just got pulled over by the police officers." And she said, "I had no idea as I was telling him how to handle it, that this would be the last time I spoke to him." And then we focused on Sissy Floyd, who is the mother of George Floyd, who died in 2018, 2 years prior to his death. And yet, with her death 2 years in the history, George Floyd used his last breaths to invoke her name and cry out to her. I've thought about that service a lot. And fortunately, with it being on Zoom, was able to go back and look at our PowerPoints, look at our order of service, remember those pictures, remember those feelings, remember those experiences. And thinking about that, what brought all that back to my mind is reading a book by Prisma Minicum called My Grandmother's Hands. Minicum is a trauma therapist who explores the impact of trauma in the body in our culture, particularly as it relates to race and violence. He uses a phrase that has become very meaningful to me. We talk a lot about white guilt and white supremacy, and we work on that, what that looks like for us in our culture. But he uses a phrase called white body supremacy and takes it out of the head and the mind and the thinking. As you heard in the opening words, he simply says, thinking is not our way out of this, and doing talk therapy is not our way out of this. For our bodies are holding trauma, and we have unconscious responses in our bodies that respond to the racism in our culture. The title of the book refers to his maternal grandmother and how he pictured her body as holding both trauma and resilience and love. He says he remembers looking one day when she was reading a story and sharing that she had these very thick, stubby fingers. And so he asked her, "Why do your hands look like this?" And the result was picking cotton as a sharecropper's daughter, beginning when she was 4 years old. Cotton plants have these burrs in them that will just simply cut you wide open on your hands when you're reaching down into the plant. And eventually, her hands adapted to this repeated trauma of reaching into those plants over and over again. And her body actually created a way to protect her from that with the calluses. But he says her hands looked odd, almost deformed as a result. And in reflecting on that later and sharing about it in a seminar, he says it was just this juxtaposition that I felt, this dilemma that I felt, because her hands looked so ugly and so beautiful at the same time. Her body, her hands were holding the trauma, literally holding it in her body, but also holding me in love. He says, my grandmother loved us with her whole heart, but like so many of us, we have a lot of trauma stored in our body. And she passed on some of that trauma to me and passed it on along with her love and resilience to her children and her grandchildren. This book is about our human bodies and how our trauma affects them, how that trauma is passed down through generations, and how resilience and trauma actually interact with us. The same bodily forces that make us resilient and make us loving creatures can also encourage us to harm one another, even on an unconscious level, or be afraid of one another on an unconscious level. So many of our efforts to address racial inequities and violence and hatred and dead and broken bodies in our streets are just conceptualized, but they've all failed. And he says if we're going to make any progress with this, we need to start with our bodies. He writes, in Between the World and Me, Ta-Nehisi Coates writes that racism is a visceral experience that dislodges the brains, blocks airways, and rips muscle. And he says that's where my book begins, with the human body. And not just with the black body, but if you study the history of Europe during the Middle Ages, you'll see that same cruelty, dislodging brains, blocking airways, and so forth, was what powerful white bodies did to less powerful white bodies for hundreds and hundreds of years, creating deep trauma in many of those white bodies. And when some of those bodies came to the New World, they brought that trauma with them, and they brought those unconscious practices with them. And today, with what he describes a concept in the 17th century of race, that hue of our skins, even though it's brought great resilience, we also continue to carry that trauma in our bodies. I like it because he says the racial divide in our country is not the Mason-Dixon line. We can't heal white body supremacy and white skin privilege without addressing and healing the trauma in ourselves. And you can't heal trauma without understanding how the human body processes it and experiences. Oftentimes I like to do a combination of reading a book because I do travel for my other job, my other part-time job from here. And I often will listen to a book and also kind of catch up with it, reading it either in paper form on Kindle. And this was one of those difficult books to read because I can remember writing down I-26 where he says, I would like to invite you to close your eyes for just a few moments. Which is really hard to do at 70 miles per hour. But it is an experience. This book is an experience of not just thinking about. He really lives up to not just thinking about how we address trauma in our bodies, but also to feel it in our bodies and do some processing of it as well. Realizing that when we process that trauma, our bodies have the great ability to heal itself. He says you're not going to heal the line created, this imaginary line called the Mason-Dixon line, but real breathing flesh and blood bodies can heal. And my book, he says, helps to begin with that healing. He reminded me that we don't put on our mountain climbing gear and surmount racism in our culture as if it's something that we can conquer. But individually and collectively, we can address the trauma that has been created over the years and the years, the trauma that's in our bodies, and heal our hearts and heal our bodies. Realizing that this divide is not an obstacle to be conquered, as we often treat race. Like if we put enough programs in place as a congregation or as a denomination that somehow we're going to hit a litmus test to say we have conquered this obstacle in our way. And it's just not possible, he says. It's a wound that lives inside of our bodies and a wound that we can heal. This is the point where you're supposed to go, Stephen, it's Mother's Day. What does this have to do with Mother's Day? Well, I'm glad you asked. I don't know that it has a great connection. But remember, you are co-creating this with me. But I will tell you, at one point in this book, he said something that made me think, this is exactly what I was trying, and we were trying to accomplish in 2021 by feeling that pain on Mother's Day of those 7 mothers. He said, reflecting on the body and the hands of his grandmother and his mother, he realized that the female body, the body of mother and grandmother, has great power. Power that government can only try to control and fail. But that power is the power to hold, create, nurture, give birth, and renew life. He said it calls to mind the amazing concept of a mothering body. And he said, you know what? All of our bodies have that ability, maybe not to physically bring a child into the world, but all of our bodies have the ability to renew, to give life, to hold, to create, and nurture life. And because of that, we can either pass along trauma that's in ourselves, generation after generation after generation, or we can pass along healing in ourselves. We can heal ourselves. We can pass along that love and resilience to our children and our culture around us, and we can have the bodies that we are wanting healed if we're willing to do the work of healing. In 1870, when Julia Ward Howe decided that she wanted to establish a day for Mother's Day, her own impassioned words told us the goal of the original holiday. Listen to her words. She says, "Arise, all women who have hearts, whether your baptism be of water or of tears, and say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies." That's worth applauding, right? She says, our husbands will not come to us reeking with carnage for caress and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we've been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We women of this country will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure their sons. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence indicate possession. Right on. I can't imagine a more powerful message for our 21st century world in 2025. Sylvia talked about the children coming to school in fear constantly, and it's real. It's not imagined fear. Like I had irrational fears as a kid, like a bear was going to climb through my window and eat my sisters, not me. I could outrun the bear. I had irrational fears as a kid that would keep me up at night. Like there's a place called hell that I might go to one day. Really haunted me most nights. Our kids have real fears because their hell is in the news. Our kids have real fears because they know what it's like to live in this world of violence and hate. They know what it's like to watch our news and hear our comments about our current climate today and feel our despondency. They have real fears. And I can't think of a better message than to say, from the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own and it says, disarm, disarm. Menachem says that the power to stand against violence and do the work of healing is our work. We can heal our bodies and do the work of overcoming, repeating that trauma in our culture. We are all holding that power within ourselves. Our bodies can transform our minds. Oftentimes we think it works the other way around, where if we get our mind right, our body will come along. But Menachem says our bodies actually have the ability to transform our minds, our perceptions, and our thinking. So we can transform our culture if we embrace that healing, if we are willing to mother, he says, that healing into the world, to break the cycle of violence and trauma and lean into the resilience and love that we claim is the core value of who we are as Unitarian Universalists. I'll let the words of Sabrina Fulton, the mother of Trayvon Martin, be our last words today. Give this mother our words and our hearing. She said, every day I would say to myself, I was strong, but I didn't feel that way just because I thought about it. I needed my inside to match up with my outside. But then I started to believe in myself. I started to trust in God and people again. I started meditating. I started healing. And one day I looked in the mirror and I said, Sabrina, you are strong. You are resilient. You can heal. Love can heal. I invite you to stand for our closing hymn.
There's a typo in the order of service. We're singing number 409. Yes. Sleep, my child, and peace attend you all through the night. I who love you shall be near you all through the night. Soft the drowsy horse or creeping hill and vale in slumber sleeping. I my loving vigil keeping all through the night. Mother, I can feel you near me all through the night. Father, I know you can hear me all through the night. And when I am your age nearly, still I will remember clearly
closing words also come from the book, My Grandmother's Hands. Minicum writes, "There's a way out of this mess, and it requires each of us to begin with our own body. You and your body are important parts of the solution. This is not a book that you will just read, but you will experience it in your body. Your body, all of our bodies, are where changing the status quo must begin." You can be seated.
Okay, and George has an announcement to share with us today.
How many of you have visited the website in the last 2 weeks? The UUCC website. Somebody's not telling the truth because the statistics show that 77% of the people there are members. So you've been there. We all depend on it. And I'm pleased to tell you that tomorrow is going to get a lot better. The process will begin to revitalize and refresh the website, the way it looks, the way it feels, and the way it reflects you and us. And I'm pleased that Laura Hartwig, our member of many years, also is playing a huge role in this. As you know, she's a web designer, and she's doing the hard work. So I want you to be patient. It'll take a couple of 3 weeks, and there'll be some glitches and some slow movement sometimes, but it's going to all pay off. So be patient with it and enjoy it when it becomes a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, George, and thank you, Laura, for working on that for us. Welcome to our people who came to visit today. We encourage you to reach out to them as you visit and socialize after. Thank you.